There has been a lot of major moments in rap when it comes to the year of 2021, and for the past couple of years, the industry has been silent because of COVID and a lot of different events, but for the most part, this year has been action-packed. We've gotten different rollouts, we've gotten major collaborations, we've gotten breaks in silence in the industry from rappers that haven't dropped in a couple of years, so it's been a really nice year. So guys, we're going to be going through the 10 biggest moments in rap for 2021, and let us know in the comment section what was your biggest moment, and take us back to that date, because I feel as if with a lot of these moments, you kind of put yourself in like the setting, you could kind of remember it and go back to that feeling. So Lou, take us into this, man. And after you explain what's going on, tell me what was let's say, your emotions going when you started the beginning of this year.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'm just happy that this year was way more eventful than 2019 and 2020. This was kind of a return to seeing a lot of the artists that we love coming back with new music and a lot of other exciting moments. But if you guys are new here, please press the subscribe button, as we'll be doing end of the year lists just like this every Wednesday up until the end of the year, starting on this week. And we'll also be doing an awards show on December 29th, which is a Wednesday, the last Wednesday of the year, where we actually take you guys through some of our favorite moments, some of our favorite categories like best verse, best rapper of the year. And that's all going to be on a live stream, so it's going to be super exciting. So stay tuned for all of that. But going back to this whole conversation, I mean, what do you think really defines a major moment? Because for me, I mean, the word comeback kind of always has a nice aura to it when we're talking about rappers that we appreciate.
Yeah, and there's been a really nice amount of people that have made comebacks this year, because as I was mentioning at the beginning of this episode, there's this sort of break in silence in the industry. And I mean, I think everyone that was relating to music and that was consuming music for the past 3 years could relate to that. A lot of people were not seeing drops from their favorite artists, or we're not getting those memorable moments. But let's actually dive into this list, and we're gonna dive in with a big one, guys. And by the way, guys, this is in no order whatsoever, or no chronological order. Lou and I wanted to create a diverse list, so it's gonna be a nice flow to it. So the first one is the Donda rollout. This was massive, dude. Remember how much content we covered on this and how crazy it was in the summer?
Yeah, those live streams were crazy.
Nuts,
that was a moment for sure. And I think that this is the biggest moment, for 2021 in rap. And Kanye West just does rollouts like none other. And to me, this is probably his best rollout. I think it's definitely the best rollout of the year, and one of the best that I've ever witnessed, if not the best. And it all started off with that aura of suspense, seeing Kanye, being spotted in public, photographed, wearing these masks that have this biblical imagery on them. Then you started to, get word that, okay, it looks like he's now making music, because this video gets posted where he's with Tyler, the Creator, and he plays 10 seconds of a snippet. And then the pieces of the puzzle just started coming together. And I said this before, but I literally became a crack fiend. I was foaming at the mouth, waiting for any update, any piece of news for this rollout, because I was just so overwhelmed with excitement for this new Kanye album. So what do you think makes it stand out as a Kanye rollout?
The suspense. The suspense was absolutely everything, because it was sort of this motion where, you heard about the Las Vegas listening party, and you heard that Kanye was going to be going back to rapping. You heard that there was an Andre 3K verse, and then I believe it was actually that same
I don't know if you heard the 3K verse.
I heard about it. No, there was rumors on Twitter,
Okay.
and there was people that were taking videos of it on Twitter. At least from my perspective on what I saw from the rollout. I'm taking you guys through a bit of a POV here. And then that same week, I'm like, okay, there has to be something. This is not resurfacing for nothing. First listening party drops. Nothing ends up happening. I'm like, fuck, I really hope the album was going to come out. But I'm like, okay, maybe this is just a situation where he's holding the album. Second listening party happens. Nothing ends up happening. And I'm starting to get cheesed. I'm starting to get a bit frustrated, because now you have fucking Justin LeBoy coming out and tweeting stuff. And, obviously none of it was really that accurate.
But didn't that mystery make it more exciting, though?
Not only did it make it more exciting, but I feel as if it made the whole album better, because not only was Kanye previewing new music, but he was previewing his process. He was letting you inside on the genius and the genius behind the album. So do you think that's what was the biggest portion of this rollout, was Kanye allowing you into his process and allowing you to see how he was forming the music, especially with Mike Dean and on the engineering side of things as well?
100%, because this Kanye knows how to keep his fan base invested with his projects, and this is the way to do it, because he almost kind of played with the emotions of the fans, because you're getting to hear an early version of a song, and then you get a change. Automatically, there's that close connection of seeing your artist work right in front of you and seeing them evolve with the music. And also, it feels personal, because you get to then have an opinion. Oh, I prefer this version over that one. Oh, I think he should have, taken out the drums on that song. But overall, I love the fact that Kanye always gave us something to talk about, because like he's called it, this was the album of the life, because not only was there the rollout, which took over a year to actually start because this all kicked off in 2020. But after that, we also had word that Kanye was doing these listening parties. And then from the Vegas one, you started hearing rumblings. And this was my favorite moment of the rollout is when that Vegas party happened and you started getting videos of snippets. And then you find out that he's assembling the Hip Hop Avengers when you hear West Side Gun's on the album. You hear Lil Baby's on the album. Baby Keem's on the album. That was the major moment for me. And the rollout's still not done because after the release, what does Kanye do? He still reminds us that Donda is a thing, that Donda is an experience. He drops the stem player. He does an interview with Drink Champs. He drops a deluxe version, and he's still not done. He's probably going to announce a tour. So this is truly him embodying this album being so whole and so embracing of all of life. And like I said, he always made us pay attention. He always gave us something to talk about, from the Jay-Z reunion to him crying alone on that football field. There was just always things for us to actually pick out and appreciate. And like you said earlier so brilliantly, Kanye is a process artist, and him letting us in so closely really built that connection with the fans. And I'll never forget this, man, for as long as I live.
No, it was absolutely unforgettable and probably, my favorite of the year. But let's talk about another return to form, and it was Tyler, the Creator, returning to rapping out of all things. And I especially looking at the way Tyler was, coming up, especially from, let's say, 2017 to now. It wasn't necessarily strictly hip-hop. We haven't gotten a strict hip-hop album from Tyler, I would say, since maybe Wolf, and this was a complete return to form from him. I mean, the rollout itself was absolutely amazing. I mean, finding out that there was billboards being posted around, different areas, and then after that, if you were to call some of these billboards from different locations and area codes, that you would get different messages and different pieces of content. So, what was so captivating about this moment? Because Tyler is not only a genius with his branding and marketing, but also with the videos behind everything and the way he was able to make all of this creative process come back to one point, and that was Call Me If You Get Lost.
Yeah, so with Tyler's return to rap, I think the biggest, moment for me was that drop of Lumberjack, as the first single of the album, just because this showed you that after he put out Igor in 2019, which was a critical darling, won the Grammy for Best Rap Album, was probably his most beloved album by fans, and also was the first time that he had the most commercial success out of any album, selling over 100,000 copies. That made me think that he might never go back to rapping ever again, because why would he? He saw his most success with this album. So to see him with that high volatile energy on a song like Lumberjack, to hear the DJ drama narration, I was like, what the fuck? I mean, yes, he did hint at it through the features on songs like 327, on songs like Something to Rap About by Freddie Gibbs. He hinted in 2020 that he might come back to rapping, but for a full album, I did not see it coming at all, and he killed it, bro.
He absolutely killed it. He really did kill it. And especially the fact that he delivered one of the best albums of the year, I think that's what made this whole experience 10 times better, because it's one thing when you return to form and when you return to a certain style, but when you're doing it in such an organized fashion, and you're doing it with such conviction, and you're doing it with such imagery, I think that's what makes it so much better. And I don't know anyone who doesn't like this album. I mean, it's one of the best of the year for sure. And just the moment of even seeing the overall album cover, like finding out that he's going into a different theme, finding out that there's going to be suspense within the album again, finding out that there's going to be even, the return of Domo Genesis on this album. Like, it was just such a big event for me, and was definitely the one event throughout all of this where I was getting, like, my heart was racing. I'm like, fuck, man, I'm super down for this. So let me ask you a question. Like, going back to the Tyler rollout, what was, like, the one thing you take out of it? Like, when you're going to look back at, let's say, 2021, and you look at this Tyler rollout, what's maybe that one thing that you're really going to take out of it and remember for the years to come?
I would say that Tyler has a lot of guts. I think that's the main thing that I'm going to take out of this, because with Call Me If You Get Lost, he showed everybody that it's okay, and it's actually a good thing to jump from one genre to the next, because with Igor, he kind of gave us his funk and R&B album, and with Call Me If You Get Lost, he returned to rap. And to see an artist jump back from one genre to the next, like, for all I know, Tyler can make a rock album next, and I would be happy with that. I would be more than thrilled to see him, bring that experimentation forward within his evolution. So I think that Tyler knocked it out of the park. But let's now move on to our next moment. And this is one that brought upon a lot of controversy. This is Drake's album cover for CLB. Take me back to the first moment when you're on your Instagram feed and you see it pop up.
Oh, man, it was pretty jokes. I'm like, this can't be it. Like, I remember talking about it. Like, we were probably in the studio at one point, and we were looking at the cover, and we were like, is this really like what it's going to be? And especially that there was so much hype around that album cover, because I'm not sure if you remember, there's a bunch of different leaked versions. People were trying to find out like what was happening with CLB, because within that whole time there was a lot of different things going on, and the future of CLB wasn't maybe clear, and people didn't know if it was going to be coming out. So the fact that it even started maybe with the ESPN glitch and then moved on to the album cover was fucking genius, because it was just controversial. And I mean, Drake is known to have album covers that get people speaking, but this was really on a different level. I mean, you had, big business giants such as Amazon and Jeep jump on this and create their own, let's say, graphics of this and their own iterations of this. And then, you had Drake himself, put this on the album. Like, did you really believe that this was going to be the album cover when you saw it?
I thought there was no fucking way. Like, I really thought that it was going to be a joke, and I'm like, okay, he's just announcing the album with this picture. But then the more I thought about it, I'm like, he might actually go through with this. And I remember that, like, when the album dropped at midnight, we're like, okay, let's see if this is actually the fucking cover. Because, like, imagine, like, obviously this album is going to go who knows how many times platinum. But imagine, like, having that photo framed on your wall as a plaque.
Yeah.
Like, that's hilarious. But it's a moment for Drake, because he knew exactly what he was doing. It's a genius move, because he knew that if everybody's going to look at this album and question it and, probably hate it, that's just going to get everybody talking. And it did get people talking, because companies like Amazon, like Jeep, started marketing their products using this style, for a design, which was actually made by Damien Hirst, who's known for, using, I would say, this minimal art of spot paintings. And that's what he did with the CLB cover. But overall, I mean, it's a memorable cover, but not in the best of ways. That's all I'm going to say.
It's maybe not his best cover, but I think that it's definitely one of the biggest moments of the year, because it's kind of like what set off the whole CLB sort of hype. Like, I think that that's what, really people are going to remember for this album, is maybe even more than the music, is probably the album cover. Like, I don't know, like, my
There's
dad
still
was...
some really solid tracks on
No,
there,
no. I'm not saying that the music's bad, but even my fucking dad was talking about this album cover, like, everyone saw it, everyone knew what was going on, and I think that it was a great moment for him to drop it, because it was like this visual stimulant for like people to be able to recognize the album and to be able to attribute a certain branding to it. So it was definitely a major moment. But let's actually move on to another massive moment within the year, and arguably maybe the biggest. Kendrick breaks his fucking silence this year. Like, how massive was that? Especially, like, we're such big Kendrick fans, and we've been waiting forever for him to even say a word or put something out. Like, it was just, like, bro, I'm telling you right now, it brought tears to my eyes. I swear to God, it actually brought tears to my eyes.
When you saw that letter?
Oh my God,
yeah.
bro. Like, I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't believe it.
I love the approach that he took with it, because it was so calm and collective. You could tell that he had spent time, calculating how he wanted to have this break of silence, and he did it in such a genuine way by just sharing a couple of quick words with his fans, updating them on, what his day-to-day has been, spending time away from his phone, and trying to just get his peace of mind right. And that's kind of what he told us in the letter, by also revealing that this would be his final album with TDE. And of course, there was rumors of this, back in 2020 when the whole PG Lang creation, took place. So it wasn't that big of a shocker, I would say, that he's leaving the label. But the fact that he said that he was working on an album during this time was massive. And then just a week later, we get that amazing comeback feature on Family Ties from Baby Keem. And this threw everybody off guard, because he came in with this plethora of these oddball cadences that nobody expected him to rap on. But at the same time, Kendrick's always been one to experiment with his voice. So it was welcome. And it was also cool to see, like, for me, the biggest takeaway was that the hunger's still there, and that he was in that state of mind to pretty much demolish his rivals by any means necessary. As he says, I'm smoking on your top 5. A similar statement that he made in the Hard Part 4. So that's kind of the question I want to ask you, is that both of those are comeback songs. For the pre-hype of an album, you had the Hard Part 4 before Damn, and now Family Ties before, I'm assuming, his next album, which might be titled Oklahoma. Which one do you prefer more, and which one made more of a splash, let's say?
Well, okay, I'm going to say this. I don't think that the Family Ties is going to be that intro.
It's not the one?
No, I don't think it's the one. I think he's going to go in with his own
Okay,
single.
but what if it was?
Okay, what if it was? Definitely the Hard Part 4. I think it's night and day for me, but it was definitely a major splash, especially with Family Ties, because it was not only, creating all kinds of hype for Baby Keem, but it was Kendrick, showing off what he was working on for the past couple of years, and it was breaking that silence silence and that deadlock, because before this, he released Damn in 2017, sold over 600,000 units first week, one of the most popular albums of the year, one of the most popular albums in his whole discography, and then boom, went silent. Never spoke on social media again, never did anything. So it was like, how are you going to follow up with that? But he did the whole Black Panther run in 2019. But I'm just saying,
2018, yeah,
2018, my bad. But I'm just saying, going forward with it was so much, time without speaking about anything, and then you come back and, you drop Absolute Flames, and then you come back and, you kind of give your fans, a sort of guideline on where you're at and, what you're trying to accomplish maybe with this new album. So I think that's what I appreciated of all of this was the honesty, where you've been at, what have you been doing, and when could we expect new music? And I had all of those questions answered. So now I'm in the seat fuck, this was a big moment, but I want the bigger moment. And that's the actual album drop at this point.
Speaking of that, though, I just want to mention that I do feel like this is his version of the Hard Part 4 for this new album, just because he has the same aggression on it, and he's also taking shots indirectly at people in the industry. So I feel like it is that vicious Kendrick before we get the album. Last thing I want to say is that I love the fact that Kendrick is always that guy to bring back that spirit of competition, like he did back in 2013 with Control. On this song, he called people out. He said, 2021, I ain't taking no prisoner. Kanye might have changed his life, but I'm still an old school Gemini. That vibe. Right now, I feel like Kendrick is in a basketball court holding a ball, sitting on the sidelines, and no one's in the arena with him. No one's joining him for that game. And yes, Freddie Gibbs did reply to him on Vice Lord Poetry, the remix of Champagne Poetry, but I feel like no one is challenging Kendrick, so it's time for him to compete with himself, and I can't wait to get it.
Yeah, the bigger moment will definitely when the album drops, and you better believe we're going to be covering all of that. So subscribe if you have not already. But let's move on to the next one, and we're going to take it back to Donda and CLB and put them together in the same conversation for the Donda and Certified Lover Boy sales battle. And it was maybe not a sales battle; it was more of a general battle.
An album battle in general.
It was an album battle. There was two different narratives going on. Who's going to sell more? Because Kanye obviously stacked up that feature list and he juiced up his overall track length, and who was going to drop the better album. So overall, answer me both of those questions just so people could get refreshed with your take on this. What do you think did better commercially in your eyes? Because Donda still did a lot regardless of the first week sales. And who do you think dropped a better album? And if you haven't seen our reviews, they're on the channel right now.
Yeah, and we actually did do a video on, whether or not these albums both lived up to the hype. And I think that they both did to some extent. I think that Donda's easily the better album. I think it was more meaningful. I think that Kanye actually executed a well thought out concept that was very personal to him, and the music just had bigger highs overall. But with Drake, he definitely won the commercial battle. Certified Lover Boy almost doubled the first week sales of Donda, but it's cool to see for me that Kanye still has this competitive aura about him, because he's always been that guy to have these sales battles. He's done it, back in 2007 for probably the biggest album sales battle of all time in history of hip hop, with Graduation versus Curtis, which he won. Then he did it again in 2013 with Born Sinner versus Yeezus, which he also won. And that one was kind of brought up by J. Cole, who moved up his release date. But nonetheless, this is the third time that Kanye, is kind of at war with another artist, and this time he loses, but he wins in another sense by having an album that might stick with people longer than Certified Lover Boy. But overall, it was just cool to see the fan base is so divided. I think it got a bit too ruthless at times, but at the same time, it was cool that football players were getting asked Donda or CLB. It was such a moment to see where your tastes lie between both artists, and that's something that we don't get too often, is two massive artists dropping around the same time. So that sense of competition once again was kind of revitalized with this sales battle.
And it was amazing to see too, because a lot of people didn't necessarily know where both of these albums were going. The suspense of both of the albums were playing in with each other, because no one wanted to drop. Drake didn't want to drop, Kanye didn't want to drop, and it was creating this anticipation that I believe the fan base is really loved, because it was suspenseful every week, and the conversation was extended every single time a week went by or a Friday went by when neither of them dropped. And then obviously you both get them at the same time period. Kanye obviously dropping at the end of August, and then then Drake at the beginning of September. So looking at the way that played into effect, it's also cool to see now that they're, back together and that they're kind of, rekindling things, because this was really heated. Like, people definitely had their opinions on it, and I believe it even went out of music at this point, because as you were saying, there was so many content creators around different industries that were making this type of content, but that weren't even necessarily in the industry. So it not only was it a nice moment for music, but it was a nice moment for everyone, because everyone loves to see two giants go head to head. But let's move on now to J. Cole applying pressure with the off season. Like, take me back to this, bro, because this was probably the biggest, let's say, break that we had in years when it came to a major release. This happened, I believe, back in May, and people were not expecting this, but we definitely got it. So what were your initial thoughts, and take me back to that emotion of the first time that you heard about this?
I want to start it this way, all right? There was obviously a lot of hype when Baz posted that picture of J. Cole kind of working on something, and I think he said like the offseason in 2 weeks, and that's when the whole internet kind of exploded. But let me put into perspective how genius this rollout was. And I don't think enough people are talking about it. Yes, all the hype is on the Donda rollout, which it deservingly is. That should be the way that it's being spoken about. But I do think that people are sleeping on this rollout, because within the span of a few weeks, J. Cole drops The Interlude, which is a great single. He releases the best freestyle of his entire career. Not only that, but he shows us his creative process with the Applying Pressure documentary ahead of the release of the offseason, and he becomes a professional basketball player all in the span of a few weeks. And this really is, again, one of the best rollouts that we've had probably in a decade, if not ever. And to see him become the first artist to ever, be featured on the Slam magazine cover, that was another massive moment. And it was just such a major flex that J. Cole drops this album, and a couple of days later, he's playing for the Rwanda Patriots in Africa. Like, it was an amazing moment. But I think that the one that really got me the most excited about the album was that freestyle, because I did not expect him to rap the way that he did there. And I think that he just sounds so seasoned. He sounded like a veteran. Some of the best punchlines in rapping that I've ever gotten from J. Cole was when he was spitting over 93 Till Infinity by Souls of Mischief, and also Still Tippin'. So the freestyle was kind of that major moment for me, but what was it for you?
I think it was the freestyle, but I'm probably going to go back to the documentary. I think that it was maybe the more of the low-key aspect of it, and was maybe more geared towards the diehard fans, but I always love seeing the artist's creative decisions when it comes to the rollout. And even the album cover was massive, because the whole branding of the project was genius, because you knew that he was going to be tying it into his earlier mixtapes, which his diehard fans absolutely beloved. And, that's what I like about J. Cole, is that he didn't necessarily, try to blow up this album in any way that he was doing all these crazy press runs or whatever it is. It was really focused on the theme of the album around basketball, and around maybe, being in that final season, going into the fall off. This is what was cool about it too, was it made you start asking questions for the next album, what was going to be happening with, the Mecca, which is going to be the fall off. So I think overall, I was a major fan of the rollout, because it was also the one thing that broke the silence for me. I mean, we're talking about the beginning of the episode where 2019, 2020 was super silent as far as releases besides Igor in 2019. And I mean, this was really the year that, J. Cole said, fuck it, I'm going to start off. Everyone has cold feet. I'm going to come in. I'm going to start my rollout, and I don't care what anyone else does. So I think that it was a huge move by him. I think that it was one of the biggest moments of the year, and one that I'm going to remember for a while. But let's keep moving on with this now. And this was a massive moment as well. The Super Bowl lineup revealed. Think about this. If I were to tell you, maybe let's go back 5 years ago. If I were to tell you in 2021, we were to see a Super Bowl performance of Kendrick Lamar, Eminem, Dr. Dre, Mary J. Blige, and Snoop Dogg, would you believe me?
Well, listen, I'll just put it this way. When I saw that picture on my timeline, I thought somebody photoshopped it.
You thought it was photoshopped?
I thought it wasn't true. I really couldn't believe it. That's how surprised I was. And a big reason for that is the fact that this is the first time in Super Bowl history that the headlining performers are hip-hop artists. And that's so huge for the genre, and it shows how far hip-hop has come. And to me, that's what this night is going to be, in Inglewood, California, in Dr. Dre's home. It's going to be a celebration of not only these amazing artists that we've watched flourish over the years, but also a celebration for the music that we love, because hip-hop deserves this spotlight. And, I mean, seeing all of these artists come together is also a full circle moment, because, Mary J. Blige aside, Eminem, Snoop Dogg, and Kendrick Lamar all came up under Dr. Dre's wing. So to see them all kind of have a moment together on stage is going to be a moment I think I'll never forget. And I just hope that they extend the time so that we can actually get a couple of performances from each artist. So this is kind of how I want to take it for the question I have for you is, name me which song you think each artist will perform and should perform. Like, think about it. This is a huge fucking stadium. Everybody's watching.
Okay, so you're basically asking me how do I think the show is going to go?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think they're going to perform any of their songs. I think that they're actually going to be gearing up to do an aftermath takeover, and like that was the whole thing for me. Was I think that they're maybe going to be previewing unreleased music. I think that if they do it, I think that if they go together, they're probably going to have material that have came out together prior to that. And the Super Bowl shows like really aren't long. Like I don't even know how
like
long.
Half an hour maybe.
No, bro, I think that's generous. I think
really?
I think maybe less. Yeah, I don't think it's much
I think
at
it's
all.
about
but
30 minutes.
But regardless, like I remember Travis Scott only had one song to perform. Like if
he wasn't a headliner though.
Regardless, like what I'm trying to say is that I think that the limited time is going to kind of stunt the performance, but overall, like it's just going to be a massive moment because you're witnessing the return of Aftermath, and what a better way to do it on one of the biggest stages, televised stages, in North America.
But back to my question though is, if they were to play old songs, if there is no Aftermath takeover, which song are they performing each?
I think Kendrick performs something off of his new album. I think Eminem performs new material. I think
but new material aside, I'm saying based on the catalog
I know, but that's what I think it's going to be,
I'm saying like, okay, well for me, I'll give my opinion. Like I think that Kendrick's either performing All Right, which is an anthem, or something like Humble, like will get the crowd moving.
Oh, okay.
Like that's the kind of I mean, like based on their hits, like what do you think they will probably perform?
Okay, so Kendrick's probably going to be All Right. Eminem's probably going to be Without Me.
Really? Over Not Afraid or Lose Yourself?
Yeah, I think so. Well, maybe not Lose Yourself. I think Lose Yourself maybe. I would do Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre are going to do the next episode and Still Dre together.
Okay,
I think
fair enough.
I think that's probably what the set list is going to look like. I mean,
maybe California Love.
Maybe we'll see what happens. But overall, I think that it's huge because not only is it a massive moment for hip hop, but it's a massive moment for the whole culture because you're seeing that all of these artists that have such a prominent impact on society are coming together and delivering one big performance, and then it kind of sparks the question: who's returning with what album, and is there going to be an album before it happens? So sparked a lot of conversation. There was a lot of controversy behind it, but let's keep moving on now to the unexpected features that ended up going on down this year. And let's talk about Fabio Foreign and Off the Grid, bro. That was fucking vicious. Did you expect that? Let me ask you.
Not at all.
Did you expect Fabio Foreign to rip one of the best verses of the year on Donda? Let me ask you that.
I think everybody's first thought was, wait, is this Fabio Foreign on a Kanye song? That was the first thought. The second thought was, oh shit, this is actually pretty good. And the third thought was probably like, he's still going on? Like he's still fucking rapping because that verse was so long.
It was like 2 minutes long.
Yeah,
bro.
man.
What the fuck? Okay, listen, this was my thoughts when I heard it because the first time we heard it was actually all together. It was, I believe it was for when did he preview that?
That was
the first listening party, right? The first or second?
I think it was the second.
Guys, correct me in the comment section. But regardless, like we were at that listening party and we were going down with it, like. I was like in awe. I couldn't believe it. I was like legit in a zone where I was like, bro, what's going on? Like, is this really Fabio Foreign destroying a verse? Like, and it was crazy because I remember we heard about the rumors because there was a bunch of rumors of featured artists and we're like, Fabio Foreign? Is that really going to fit the Donda vibe? And he ends up having like a top 3 feature on the whole fucking album. So take me through that, man. Like, what did you like about it? And like, why did it create so much hype for the album itself? Like when it actually dropped?
Yeah, well, number one was the fact that there was Kanye rapping over a drill song. Like to see him work with an artist like Fabio, that was totally unexpected. And it was also the fact that, as we've seen with other Kanye projects, it kind of should come as no surprise that Kanye gets career best performances out of the artists that are featured on his projects. And that's what he's done here with Fabio, who gives way more substance than he's ever given before, which was awesome to see. And also kind of fits into the theme of speaking about God, which was super refreshing, as he's also taking you through his spiritual journey while he was in jail and what his daily routine was there, praying every night, working out, that whole kind of thing. So it was cool to get that level of substance from Fabio. And like you said, the way that he ripped through those verses with his unrelentless flow, like it was amazing to see.
It was crazy, and like especially like an artist of his caliber that necessarily doesn't get like, let's say, the credit that he deserves for maybe his music besides Donda, and then comes in and absolutely rips one of the best verses. I mean, overall, I just fucked with it. But give me another unexpected verse that you really fucked with.
An
this
unexpected feature that I also wanted to mention was NBA YoungBoy on What's Your Name.
That was massive.
From Call Me If You Get Lost. This was a huge moment, and this really had the internet buzzing. Like people were like, "There's no fucking way YoungBoy is on a Tyler album," and I can't believe how well he fit on a song like What's Your Name, which has this very soft beat. It's super soulful, and I wouldn't say that he's necessarily singing on this, but it's super melodic, and usually we're used to getting YoungBoy on this very rowdy flow, but with this song, the melodic rapping just hits so nice.
It's really good.
It was cool to see him get out of his comfort zone. And that's kind of the same situation with Fabio, where these artists got out of their comfort zones to really give us memorable performances. And that's why these unexpected features really were a huge moment for me in 2021.
It was a really underrated moment as well. I think that this is maybe the most underrated moment of the year for me. But let's move on to the next moment. And we're kind of getting on to the end of our list now.
We have two left.
We have two left, guys. Okay. The next one is the Nas and Eminem collaboration on King's Disease 2. Two of the best lyricists to ever do it, coming together for the first time in hip-hop history. And it's crazy that it took them nearly fucking like 3 decades to come together and do this. So why do you think they never did it before? And why do you think they chose this year to do it on EPMD, my bad, too?
Well, yeah, it's interesting because there is like some history to this, I would say. Eminem has always named Nas as one of his favorite rappers of all time. And Nas has also shown love to Eminem. I think it was back in 2009 around when Eminem kind of took that hiatus from rapping in the mid-2000s and came back with Relapse. Nas said that was one of the most exciting hip-hop moments that he's ever experienced, to see Eminem come back with Relapse. So they had that mutual love, and they actually did collaborate in 2002 for the song The Cross, off of God's Son. Eminem actually had produced that song, which was pretty cool. And if you listen to it, you could tell right away that it's an Eminem beat. And afterwards, they also made a song together called Topless, which was for Dr. Dre, but it never saw the light of day, unfortunately. So to see them now come together for EPMD 2, like, this is a massive fucking moment, because the whole time, when I first saw that track list and I saw Eminem featured, I'm like, this better be a bar for bar battle. Like, I want to see who's going to out-rap who, because that's your first thought when you get two of the greatest to ever do it on the same track, is like, who's going to get the best out of the other. And it was interesting. They both did their thing. I mean, they're both on familiar territory over, rapping on Hit Boy production, but I think Eminem got him. I'm not going to lie.
No. Honestly,
absolutely.
This is what I'm going to say. I think that the moment was massive for me because the actual anticipation leading up to it, like, it was definitely the collaboration that I was the most intrigued to see this year. Like, I think that, looking at both, like, all the albums that, let's say, we mentioned on this list, like, there's a lot of different collaborations that went down that, had me questioning things, but this one was the one that really, geared me up and really, put gas in the tank. But I wasn't impressed with the song, bro. I'm being honest with you. I wasn't a massive fan of the song, and it was actually because of Eminem's verse. I'm sorry. Like, for me, like, I think that his delivery was a bit off for me, but I think that, like, I appreciate this as a moment because it was the first time that I ever witnessed a drop like that. Like, if you're a hip hop head, how aren't you going to appreciate a moment like this? Like, this is the first time that this has ever gone down as far as having, two released verses on the same song. Like, that's fucking massive for me. So regardless of the quality, I think that I just love it because of the nostalgia factor.
It was great, though. Eminem's flows were effortless. The bars hit so hard. The punchlines were also great. And it was a return to form for Eminem for me, because I haven't liked Music to Be Murdered By so much. And also some of his feature verses weren't hitting for me. But to me, this was great. But let's now move on to the last moment on our list. And this actually happened towards the beginning of the year, and this was Bobby Shmurda getting released. And when you take it back to 2014, we know the hits that Bobby Shmurda had and the buzz that he had stirred. So to see him have been able to keep that buzz generated for 7 years after being locked up, to me, that was already pretty appalling. I mean, I knew I was excited for Bobby Shmurda music, but I didn't know that the whole community was. So to see how many people were happy for Bobby, for him to get released and to be able to go back home and start working on music again, that was a massive moment. I mean, I remember all those pictures of him getting picked up on the private jet from Quavo, and to see him reunited with someone that he worked with closely. So it was a very exciting time. But the main question was, when are we going to get that First Day Out song? But we're waiting, 1 week passed by, 2 weeks passed by, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it took 6 fucking months to get the song, bro. So let me know your thoughts on the wait and also on the final product of that first single that he released?
The first single is really not it. I think that that's probably what I'm going to say about it. And it's no hate on Bobby. It's definitely not my style. But I was just happy to see him come out because we were like early in high school, right? And like we were bumping all kinds of Shmurda She Wrote. Like it was so prominent within pop culture, and Bobby Shmurda's sound was just blowing up. And you saw the effect that he had on the New York scene, especially with the way that he influenced artists like Pop Smoke and the whole drill scene as a whole. So I think that that's what I was excited for, was just for him to be out. Like the whole situation, like going into the legal thing, like that's not where I'm going to go with it. I have no education upon that. But I think that when you're talking about him getting released, it was a moment because, again, it was a situation where this was not only music, this was pop culture. Like people were waiting for this to happen. I mean, Twitter was blowing up. Bobby Shmurda was trending everywhere. Like people that weren't even inside the industry were congratulating him, and people were genuinely happy to see him out and to see him free again because I mean, listen, like low key, like the guy like could have had like one of the hottest careers, you know, for New York as far as like that 2014 run goes, and then it got clipped short. So I think that's why everyone was happy to see him out.
I will say that it's not over yet. I think that he absolutely did kill the hype by waiting 6 months to drop that First Day Out song, and I haven't been a fan of No Time for Sleep Freestyle or the new song he put out called Splash. I think that they're pretty disappointing, and he's kind of rapping over the same old, you know, generic 808 loops. Like it's a bit disappointing, but nonetheless, I'm looking forward to what Bobby has in store, especially with his debut album. But overall, guys, let us know what you think was the biggest moment in hip-hop and your favorite moment. And this was a fun list to do just because it's cool to kind of look back at the year and really, you know, take into consideration the moments that got us excited about the music that we love and that we appreciate. And this year really had a lot of eventful moments. So if you guys want to stay connected with some upcoming moments that will come, such as album releases and so much more, press the subscribe button, smash the like button to help us reach other hip-hop fans, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Thank you for watching the video. It's always a pleasure doing content for you guys. Listen, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel because we're doing album reviews, and we actually have our series called Everything We Know, where we take you guys through the whole album rollout of the hottest releases of the year. Not only that, guys, but our Patreon plan is now live. You guys could access that in the bio. I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you on the next one.